anything out in a while, so I figured I'd just take you guys along on kind of a typical night of work, patterning some Damascus with me and also twisting a bar. So let's kind of get into it and just see what I get up to in here randomly.
So here I've got the ribbon burner PID forge built by Jared Todd. It's a nice forge, kind of roomy inside, and we're just heating up some steel in there. Gonna pattern it right now. You can see that heat shield over the billet handle kind of reddening up, and the solenoid's clicking. It's about ready to take out of there. Here we are at the power twister. This is made out of a old pipe threader. I think I've shown it before. And this is a billet of W's, so now I'm twisting it up to make Firestorm. Not a super tight twist, but fairly well twisted because I'll be drawing it out again afterwards and losing some of that tightness. This thing is just a ton of fun to run. Grab it with tongs if the twist is too tight in one portion to try to control where it's twisting. That's pretty much it right there. I just gotta draw it out next. Over to the Baudry. I gotta get a stiffer mount for my phone tripod because this thing just bounces it around. And that's with the Baudry sitting on top of 3 1/4 yards of concrete directly underneath it. But right now I came out at a welding heat and I'm just kind of sealing up all the surfaces of the twists, tumbling the billet. Just so I get clean material after I draw it out into a rectangular bar. And this time we'll actually start knocking it down square and then flat and really drawing it out. This particular customer wanted like an 18-inch long piece of material, 2 inches wide, so I gotta make sure it gets some width to it as well. Drawing some length out here. Well, actually, this is a top tool, and it is a mild top fuller, so I'm stretching some width out. This thing is crowned parallel to the die here, so that it's directionally forcing the billet wider as I'm forging using this top tool. And I wanted to do that just to make sure I got that good width that the customer wanted on this billet. Now I just go ahead and kind of draw it out and get some length out of it. So we got to a pretty good width there. Now I'm going to roll it out in the rolling mill. Really stretch it out a little bit more. I got a reversing switch on the thing, so as soon as the roller has rolled all the way through, I'll hit reverse and roll it back out at me, and then I just add some more top roll feed with that hand wheel up there to get it even thinner on the next pass. I can only usually get about 3 passes before the material has lost enough heat that it starts to really curve or stall. You can see it curving here, then I gotta go straighten it. That's why I keep that Trenton anvil right there. So I have a quick way of adjusting curvature out of billets if I want to re-roll or just get it back in the forge. I'm working on a bunch of different pieces of steel. This is 204 layer random pattern, and I'm marking it. I'm cutting each of these billets in half, and then I'm going to roll them out a little bit further. Once they get to a certain length, they don't fit in the forge all at once, but I like to have the whole thing hot to roll it, so I'll chop it into smaller pieces and then keep rolling it pretty often. The Abrasive Chop Saw works great for this stuff because I don't have to worry about whether it's partly air hardened or whatever wrecking my bandsaw blade. I just blast through with the chop saw. 5 horsepower, Brilliant brand cutoff saw. It's a pretty cool machine. Look in there, you can see a couple of them heating up on that floor support. Getting ready to roll them out thinner. And here we are, we're just taking them down 1/8 of an inch per pass, and as they cool I'll start bringing it to 1/16 of an inch per pass. I got kind of a rake over there that I can stop them popping out onto the floor and then kind of pull them back towards me so I can grab them with tongs. If you roll them too cold, sometimes it'll just launch them out the ends of the rollers and you're scrambling to get them off the floor. You can hear me kind of straightening them over there by hand. Rolling the second one. And raking it over, re-grab it, turn it around, roll it again. Hopefully it balances out the rolling distortion if you flip it and then re-roll it. Last roll for this one, probably. So this is over at my shop-built 25-ton forging press. I got laddering dies in there with a depth stop, adjustable depth stop. And I am pressing ladder pattern into a billet of W's Damascus. This just puts that nice ruffled grain into it. So when you grind it, it just has that super even wave. There's a closer shot. You can see the threads on those two bolts and nut sets on the adjustable depth stop for the press. Pressing it in nice and hot. Just a few teeth at a time. And hand straighten it a little bit at the anvil every time. And then maybe even straighten it in the press dies a little. And even those dies I cut myself on my metal shaper. Here's a final view of that process. I have 4 bars of this W's pattern stuff to ladder. And I gotta set the depth stop so that once I grind the ridges that I've pressed in, I'll have a resulting bar that's just about the right thickness to sell for kitchen knife stock. So anywhere from 100 thou up to 125 thou or 1/8 inch. 1/8 or just a little below. Again, I keep that anvil over by the press and rolling mill just for quick straightening. It's also a good secondary anvil for students, or if I got a couple guys working in here at once. Now this is pretty exciting. This Niles Bement Pond 250-pound utility hammer is now working pretty well, and I can actually use it as needed in my production process. It's got a mild crown on the dies, so I'm forging lengthwise to the dies just to get a little bit more width on that Twisted W's or Firestorm bar. It's a little thick, a little bit narrow still, so I'm just putting it in between just to butter it out wider. And then I'll just planish it through the dies one time. This machine is pretty flippin' fun to use. And this is the first time that you'll actually see me forging steel with it in one of my videos. I'm gonna post more about the rebuild of it up to the culmination here in my separate series on it. But yeah, look at the power of that thing, just blasting scale off there. It's really quick for a 250-pound air hammer. It was made and began life as a steam hammer, but now it's an air hammer. It uses a lot of air. Now we're back to the Baudry with that one, just to kind of finish, planish, and straighten. The Baudry is a super controllable, nice hammer for finishing Damascus. You can see how slow and soft you can hit with it. Here I'm using a top tool I call the Randomizer. It just has a bunch of MIG beads welded onto one face of it. And I just use it as a struck tool to forge a bunch of divots into the surface of a random pattern billet. And it makes the pattern much more raindroppy, random burl type, interesting. You can do the same thing with a ball peen hammer, but this one is like using about 8 or 9 ball peen hammers at once under a power hammer, so it works really great. You can just get a whole billet in one heat with a really tight pattern. And then once I've worked my way, I try to change the angle of the tool, position of the tool, just so I get a lot of overlapping strikes so I don't have blank spots in my billet. Once I get all that, I'll just get the ends where I grabbed it first, hitting a lot harder now that the billet is cold. And then after that, pretty much, it's just planish it straight, the tool aside. Then we're going to go right over to the rolling mill and take about a 1/16 off the thickness, which means I'll still have some grinding to do to get out the divots, but now I'm at an even grindable thickness. I might have stretched this one by 1/8. You can see me dialing down more feed. And then I had 4 bars that I did the same thing to, and then I rolled them all out to the same thickness. It was super handy. It's working in batches. So with all my W's bars either laddered or twisted, and all my random bars punched up to enhance the pattern and rolled to final thickness, I'm shutting everything down, the gas first, then the air. Alright guys, so here is the fruits of the evening's work. We've got one big long billet of Firestorm, aka W's Twist. 4 chef-sized billets of random pattern, or burl. You can see I beat it all up with that top tool on the hammer, then rolled it a little bit thinner. And 4 chef-sized billets of ladder W's. So a total of 9 pieces there. I'll be putting them up for sale on my website later this week after I grind them. We got to use the Niles Bement Pond utility hammer for the first time in a production video. So that's exciting. It was actually quite handy for stretching this Firestorm out a little bit wider and then drawing it. It's very effective on thin stock with that mild crown on its dies. We used the big Baudry for the bulk of the work, the patterning, the tooling stuff. It was just amazing as always. Here we had the rolling mill. You saw that, just getting stock to size, stretching it out. And then we use, of course, the hydraulic forging press with laddering dies and a depth stop to evenly pattern the billets. And we used the big blown ribbon burner forge with PID control. And lastly, I'm going to put the billets in the Paragon furnace here to normalize and anneal overnight. And I will see you guys all on the next one. Thanks for watching.